Hello, it's Garth. Just making sure my microphone works.
We hear you, Garth.
Thank you.
Hi, Garth, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. Is Judy there, or I don't see anybody?
We don't see the room yet, do we? Or do we? I don't know.
No. I just see a few other people, but.
Maybe they're still working on it.
Yeah. Could be.
Hello, Jeff. I don't think I'd want to be you these days.
And why is that?
It's like when the principal calls a snow day, you just can't make
Yeah.
people happy. So if you don't call the snow day, you got parents mad. If you do call a snow day, you have other parents mad. And
Yeah,
it's probably like that.
yeah.
Yeah, you can't please all the people all the time.
Yeah. Oh. I see Tone of Ashford. Work in progress.
Hi, Garth.
Hi,
Hello.
Judy.
Hi, Angie.
Hi.
Make it bigger so I can see who's out there. Hi, Jane and Rick.
Hi, good evening.
And we got Cindy Flyer. Rick Cool, team. KOUATL. Silverson? Yeah. I'll move it when you're ready. That's it, all right? Rick, somebody, I'll spell it for you. KOUATLY.
Okay,
And I'm gonna pronounce it
okay.
incorrectly. Then you got Cindy.
Yeah, I got the others. Yeah.
And that Rick could actually be Kim, who's the Board of Ed member.
Oh, it could be a Kim?
Yeah.
Okay.
Rick is Kim's
Oh,
husband.
must be done.
Yeah.
Okay, let me have a-
So there's 8 people online.
Meetings called to order, 7:04. Roll call for members. Angie DeSanto,
I'm here.
John Kopek. Jesse Burnham,
Here,
Paul Varga,
here,
Garth Bean,
Here.
Esther Jagodzinski. Hugh McKenzie. And Christina Davis. Christina. Okay, so for communications, I got a bunch of stuff that's been sent to me. I'll go through one at a time. We had a budget correction from the school for, from Cindy. It says in the Board of Finance meeting Thursday, I said there was no substitute custodians in the budget for this year or last. I misspoke. The sub custodian line item was moved to a separate item for coding purposes. The budget contains 3,000 for subs both years. I regret the error. That's from Dina. In behalf of Cindy. You okay, Valerie? Our check for 23-24 will be no charge to no change to the contract price. It will remain the same.
What's that for?
The our tech. Mike D'Amato. The cyber thing, I'm gonna leave for you, Bill, for the cyber update. Then we'll leave the school too, because it's part of the capital. If you remember, I'll remind you. Okay, public comments? Do we have anybody that would like to make comments? Nobody?
Actually, if I could, that would be great. I put my hand up. Rick Quatley.
Okay, Rick, go ahead.
All right, great. Thank you for the opportunity. Good evening and thank you for this opportunity. Last week, it was great to see how cohesive and the flow was between the board and that of the Board of Education and other school administration. In reflection, I personally feel that the harmony within the school, the board, and others is at the most cohesive and best level I've seen since being involved with the school for the better part of a decade and a half. On that theme, I believe that those that contributed to the review, research, and crafting the budget presented to the board did so in an impressive fashion that resulted in, through education and learning about the budget, a truly representative presentation for what's in the best interest of our community. For those not aware, the original ask was over a 4% increase. Please keep in mind, some of those are fixed costs that no one really has a luxury to just say, well, not this year. On top of that, those aforementioned folks that contributed to the crafting of the Board of Education budget also are responsible for savings to the town in fuel and heating costs that stretch beyond that just of the Board of Education. For those that don't know, the locked-in cost for diesel fuel and heating oil that was able to be achieved would make anyone envious. It certainly did for me. My point in noting that is that the efforts of those noted prior have a wider positive impact beyond that, just which applies to the Board of Education budget request. To have the Board of Ed come into last week's meeting being able to say their original requested budget is actually less due to the efforts of those within the BOE's oversight or umbrella of influence should not be forgotten and should be truly seen for what it is. The effort that makes so many folks strive for, whether in corporate life or otherwise, which is simply to do the right thing. On that theme, I wholeheartedly recommend and hope that this board will be 100% supportive of the Board of Education's requested budget. All items in it are needed and will continue the trend of our school and by extension, our community to keep moving forward in the right direction. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. And yes, Jesse, Kim will be in and out. She's just not sitting with me right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for joining us. It's nice to hear from the outside.
Excuse me, Judy, can I just ask who that was?
Me too. That was Mike Coatley.
No, Rick, well,
Kouatly.
And the residents of Ashford, is that correct?
Are you a resident, Mike?
no, Rick.
So as Jesse knows, my wife has been involved with things in the town for a while. She is a member of the Board of Education. I've been proud, as I mentioned last week, to be a resident since 2003. And having I could go on and on. I've always been accused I could talk someone's ear off, but I hope I answered your question.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions, guys? Anybody else for comments? Okay. Moving on, so we need a motion for approval of the minutes. I gotta get back to my.
I so move, Angie.
Thanks, and I'm not there yet, I'm trying to.
Say it again?
Thank you, Angie. Should we get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jesse. Any discussion?
Sure, and paragraph 1, just to point out my name doesn't have an I in it. I didn't see anything else.
Anybody else? Angie, Garth?
Yep.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
All those opposed? All those abstain? Okay, motion passes. And 1 second to get to my agenda. Hit the wrong button. Okay. New business, selectmen's update. Mr. Folletti?
I will pass on that for tonight, pending the next thing on the agenda.
Okay. Okay, discussion with the general government budget presented to the BOF by the BOS.
I'm gonna stand just so I can all of my papers. That's the same
You
one.
guys know Sharon?
It's the same one.
Okay.
There are 4
Is this the
pages.
new
It's
treasurer?
getting
Yeah.
modified.
That's what I was gonna introduce. You guys all know Sherry, right? Our new treasurer.
I'm Sherry Susie. It's nice to meet everybody. Does anybody else need budget?
So there's a 4-page.
Yes, there's a 4-page update. Yes. There's a,
I may need that too.
I'd like a copy of.
absolutely. Here's the
Thank you.
4-page.
And
Here is a full.
Thank you.
Just.
Wow. Oh, God.
Wait.
Oh, okay. If you want, you can come and bear my seat, Phil.
Perfect, thank you.
So those 4 pages substitute the pages in this?
Yes, there's 4 pages that were modified Monday. So they weren't included in the package when we printed them off last week. So. One of them, it was Selectmen's budget, which was page 1. One is the transfer station, which is page 20. And the last one is page 38, which is your last page of this packet.
All right, well, I'm gonna jump into this. What my intention tonight to do is just, I'll give you sort of a 10,000-foot vision of where we are and some explanation how we got there. Terry was kind enough to join us tonight. You know, we want to get into some technical situation on expenditures in previous years, for particular line items and everything, we get into that. The Board of Selectmen met last Monday, and I'd also like to thank Catherine for being here, my colleague on the Board of Selectmen. And we unanimously recommended a town government budget of $3,845,800 $3,845,804, which represents a 0.11% increase overall in the budget. Part of the things that helped us achieve that are some notable savings in this year's budget that will not be going into the proposed budget that has been handed out to you. The most significant one is our debt service. Falls $192,800 from what was in last year's budget. Another appreciable savings that we did not carry over into this projected budget is $50,000 for the fuel contingency fund that we put in last year, anticipating we were going to run into a potential of a major funding shortage at the school and or the town. Luckily, we did not do either. Last week, I explained to you folks what the difference is on our latest lock-in prices, and it's a considerable savings. I haven't got specifics from the business office of the school yet, but I believe our overall cost in the aggregate is about $30,000 over what was apportioned last year. Just for reference sake, a mill rate in the the 22-23 budget was $359,182.36. The estimate that Sherry's given me, based on the figures that are in front of us right now, is a mill is equal to $361,249,033. Now, some of the figures that we are going forward with, just because time is not on our side and we wanted to get you a budget, are still being refined. A good example is just this Monday, between the school and the town, we were anticipating a cyber insurance charge of over $41,000. It's come in considerably less than that this year. A bid that we got in, we have a consultant working on that. They went out to bid. They got 4 different numbers. The latest number, what are we sharing? The amount of saving?
Okay, so for this year, the amount for cyber between the school and us is going to be $7,060. So we are responsible for 37% of that, so it's going to be $2,600 roughly. So for next year, for the 23-24, they're talking of roughly $18,000 for both the town and the school, and 37% of that is going to be $6,660 for the town side. So that is what they're working on right now.
Now, items, obviously, that's a welcome savings. And as I said, there's still a few, we've gone out to bid for mowing charges. We have, Joe Kalinowski's company has been doing for a number of years and locked in the price, probably over 10 years, doing the ball fields. He's going to be retiring. He won't be doing that. We've gone out to bid. Based on what that bid comes in, I'm going to be recommending to the Board of Selectmen, given those figures, potentially taking over that mowing by the Department of Public Works. Right now, I believe that cost totals in the area of $13,000 that we've been paying for it. What we've got to do is balance off what impact that'll have on DPW and their manpower, but I want to address that just in a second. Some of the additions that the Board of Selectmen has recommended in our $3.8 million budget is bringing the youth service director up to a salary level associated with directors of our other departments. That is going to equate about a $14,000 increase in her salary. Now, some of that salary is offset. Right now, she gets approximately $51,000 a year, where our other agency heads are in the area of 65. That 51 is also in the past been offset by DCF reimbursement salary funds for the tune of about 14,000. So although we'll be bringing her up to 65,000, we still will be getting those reimbursements back from the state to assign off. And there's another one, Sherry, I think it's about $3,500 salary adjustment.
Yes, let's see. The DCF is 14, the state, there was also a state grant for roughly $5,600. If COVID still is in play, and some of that money that was $7,200. Some of the CRAC funds, SERAC, not sure what that one is. Yeah, I haven't. Oh, yes, I do. That is can't remember what it is. That's 2675. I can't remember what it is. Go ahead.
So if I understand, I hope you can hear, if I understand correctly, the 14,000 is kind of an offset against her salary.
Correct.
Okay, and I think there was one more number, but then all of the other contributions, whether they're grants or whatever, are for the programs, which is a different animal.
Existing substance abuse programs. I mean, there's several in there. For those of you, I think we're all familiar with what he does, but basically, Melissa spends 2 days a week here, addressing social service needs and everything else, 3 days up at the school. Her title is youth service director. She does a fine job. I think what people don't realize is in the capacity of doing the youth service part of her position, and also social service director, which he also does. It's a 24/7 job. I've had a number of occasions where I've had to call her, Catherine, probably had to do the same thing on holidays, weekends, or if the fire department is in a situation where we've got a family that's in crisis for one reason or another. Melissa is the one that we call on. So the Board of Selectmen is very comfortable in bringing her up to a level comparable to others in similar positions. We've also included an additional in our budget, in the Selectmen's budget, an amount of $5,200. This will be for the editor of the Citizen, which is presently Sherry Munch. Because of lack of volunteers and just realistic and bringing it up to updated standards electronically and everything else, she does 90 or 95% of the work. She does Karen Zulick, the sister, as her assistant, and that office somewhat, but it rests on the shoulders of Sherry. She does a fine job at it. Again, this is another thing, a lot of that time is after hours, on weekends or holidays to prepare that. The citizen is an important function that we're all very satisfied meets a much needed communication need in town. So we appreciate her efforts and we want to reimburse her for that amount. We've also included an additional $20,000 in the Public Works Department / transfer station. Our intention, we presently have a part-time position in there. Our intention is to bring that up to probably near 30 hours a week. And that person, we look at it as a multi-skilled person. One of the things that we want to emphasize, we're going to be changing procedures up there regarding stickers and who is using or not using or shouldn't be using the transfer station. We're going to be setting up a booth that check tickets as people, stickers as people come in, and to follow up on a number of other things that we think we have a bit of a weakness up there. As you know, our transfer station costs have been doing nothing but escalating over the past number of years, and we're trying to get a handle on that. That position, when I say multi-skill, we're also hoping that that person, although we probably will not require a CDL, but in times of emergency snowstorms or whatever, to be a utility driver for one of our smaller pickups or 550 dump trucks to help us do the dirt roads and that. And the third thing, and we're trying to be idealistic here and hoping this person exists out there, is to help us do handy man sort of things around town hall. There are a number of things that we have deferred in maintenance, just either because some of you will remember we used to have John Wooten fulfill that need. John retired and frankly, it's never been replaced. But all I'd have to do would be walk around this building with you in several places interior to show you where the paint is starting to deteriorate, where we've got some cracks interior that need cleaning and tacking. Just general handyman's work. These sort of maintenance things can only be deferred for so long when they become major projects, and we're trying to avoid that. So we're confident that adding that position is something that's needed and we feel can be addressed by adding this extra 20,000 a year. Those are basically the increases. There are minimal increases in several of our departments. Many of them are contractual. Again, we congratulate all of the town departments. They truly work at a limit that they do not want to exceed, knowing that the financial situation of the town is directly affected by that. They work pretty much as close to the line as possible, and it's much appreciated. In fact, there's only one agency or department we intend on bringing in, that's next Monday, will be DPW, just because of the multifaceted task that Joe and his crew do there. We're going to be looking for some clarification from him. But other than that, we compliment the town and its staff on their performance and their ongoing issues regarding bringing in budgets that are affordable. The other thing I want to touch on, we had a first meeting, although there were no motions made, is basically informational of our capital non-reoccurring committee. That committee comprises representing the fire department, Paul Varga, Board of Finance, Judy, the school, Cindy Ford, the highway department, Joe Kalinowski, who am I missing? The member of the public who we're all familiar with, Chuck Punk, who has served on that committee for a number of years, and I'm missing somebody else. Jim Rupert, who is the chairman of the school committee, building committee. Jim wasn't able to make it, but he did give us some written opinions of his. Pretty much we'll be submitting the Board of Selectmen on Monday night and Monday morning. We'll be going over the figures that we discussed. We have not verified anything Right now, my understanding, and a rough figure that I've got from our finance department, we had approximately in the last audit report, a balance of about 639,000 in the CNR fund. We've either spent or had committed monies of at least that, probably about 340,000. The balance that we're looking at right now, and Sherry is going to be verifying that tomorrow, is about $300,000. With the items that we've discussed, and once the Board of Selectmen is presented this, can certainly share the worksheet with everybody. Right now, I tabulate that we're looking at an apportionment of about $364,000. So we're gonna have to come up with a way to finance that. I think it's also critical that we keep in mind, we'd like to keep that CNR fund generated with as high as a dollar amount as possible. We're not gonna have any surpluses from the budget year that just ended June 30th of last year, which is one of the resources that we normally look at to put into that fund. But one of the things that I'll be discussing with my board on Monday and potentially making a recommendation to you folks and ultimately it's your decision. The undesignated fund balance as it sits right now, according to the last audit report, has a balance of 14.3% representative of the entire budget. Typically, our auditors recommend 10 to 15% in that amount. If we were to reduce that amount to 12%, that would equate to the figures that we've got before us right now to just under $190,000 that could be transferred to CNR. If it went to 11,000, there'd be approximately 347,000 that could be added to that amount. And our board will be discussing this in strategy, but I think that that's a resource that you folks as the Board of Finance is going to have to take a serious look at. That's pretty much what I have. I'm happy to answer any questions. As I said, Sherry is here. If you've got any detail, I know most of you just received your workbooks today. And we will be reviewing, I mean, during the course of the week, if there's some departments that you'd like to come in, let your chairman know that. Also, our board, if we have any recommendations regarding this budget, in addition to what we've already suggested to you, we'll be making those. Are there any questions? Or Catherine, did I miss anything? Would you like to touch on anything?
No, I don't think so.
I just had a quick question. On the number of employees of the Public Works Department, how many are there as full-time employees?
You've got 5 plus your highway foreman.
5 plus the foreman. All right. So,
5 plus the what?
Foreman.
Oh, okay.
and then you have
We
one.
call him many things, highway foreman, public works director.
Okay.
I've called him a few things that I can't mention.
As have I.
But you're looking at taking one that's a part-timer, not one of those.
Right now, we have a part-time position at the transfer station that we've been utilizing as a backup. Our intention would be to consolidate that position into nearly a full-time position, but be able to utilize it between the handyman work. DPW is a fill-in driver, in case of an illness or an exceptionally bad storm that we need a backup, even if it's for loading salt, that sort of thing. To try to, I'm gonna call him the utility person, for lack of a better name.
Bill, is that reflected in the transfer station budget at 20,000?
Yes, it is right now.
And I know that the transfer station committee has been working on a better system for over there. Do they hope to save us some money?
Well, there's a lot of concerns that we have people from other towns. And people that have been going in and taking advantage of the situation or bringing materials from jobs that they've done in other towns and dumping them on ours. I mean, if you look at our surrounding towns, we're the only town that I've been able to come up with that charges nothing for the transfer station.
It was my understanding we're the only one in the state.
Really?
That could be it. I haven't got that far yet, but it
Wow.
wouldn't surprise me. And it's a problem, and it's this method, what I intend on doing, what we intend on doing is putting in a shack there, another shack, where cars will be stopped before they get to the main dumping areas and that. Check for their stickers. If they don't have one, making arrangements where they can, if they're legitimate, they can either get one there at the time. Or if they have an excuse like they're working at my house and it's debris from my house and they're a contractor, giving them a one-day pass or whatever. And having an outline on what procedures they have to follow. It's a way for us to try to get some control.
Well, I am 100% on board because I agree, but I guess that's my question is, does the committee anticipate that maybe in the overall big scheme, we're spending 20,000 for another person, but maybe our tipping fees won't be as much because we won't be tipping anymore?
Well, not only tipping, but I mean, that's what we're hoping for, and that's one of our main goals and challenges at the same time. But also keeping in mind, there's been a major increase in the cost for private collections right now. We've seen an uptick in requests for stickers, so there's gonna be, while we may put this person on, we may not show it the first year because we're gonna get,
Right.
we're already seeing, it's only maybe a dozen or a dozen and a half, but we're not sure where that's gonna go.
Doesn't take much.
Some of the people got an increase in their private dumping, almost double what they were doing.
So that they decided now it's.
A number of them are thinking it's a better alternative, particularly in this economic environment.
Has there been any discussion about maybe charging a fee for certain types of items, say mattresses, electronics, bulky waste, or anything like that?
There's been some discussion, but nothing put on the table. We're all aware of what other towns do, and I know Terry Wakeman is the new chairman of that committee. And they've had one meeting already, and I've asked him to try to do a regular set of meetings once every month and a half or something like that. Those are things that are being discussed, because our costs are going up considerably. But we're also doing some research. I mean, I understand there's some towns, you lived in one of them, I believe, where all you had to do was go into the transfer station and show your ID.
You had to prove that you
driver's
lived in town.
license, and that was it. We want to make it a little more complicated than that. There's all
Well,
sorts of
that was
alternatives.
pretty complicated if you happen to rent at the time, you know, and you
Yeah.
didn't have your driver's license hadn't been changed or whatever.
Are there benefits to this position? Do you know how much it's gonna cost, benefits?
Right now, it would be non-benefits, but it's something we'll be looking at. If it ends up being 30 hours or more, according to state law, we would have to give health benefits.
So is that budgeted in, or we just don't know yet?
Right now, we're gonna try to keep it under 30 hours.
Okay. Angie, I
I
saw
have a
your hand.
question.
I saw your hand.
I have a
Go ahead,
question.
Angie. Go ahead.
Hi, Angie.
Me?
Yep.
Me? Okay. Ever since we went to, going, you guys are at the town hall and we're doing Zoom kind of thing. I really can't hear much of what's going on, so I'm trying my best. But we were just talking about the transfer station, I guess. Is that true?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
among a combination utility person, but yes.
Yeah, anyway, I don't know if you know it, but one of the condo areas in town decided not to pay for recycling anymore. And so all those people are gonna come to the transfer station with their recycling, so just gives you, yeah.
We're seeing an update. Regarding the Zoom in this room, Angie, we have got a price and we're looking at dedicating some ARPA funds to upgrading the system in this room. Just for that precise, it's not ideal with the system we have right now.
Yeah, I tried the best I can. I kind of follow it, but I'll try to get to come to the meetings when the weather gets better. Like maybe
Understood.
next week.
Understood. We'll keep our fingers crossed. Spring is right around the corner.
Okay.
Hey, Bill, I did not know that a condo complex had stopped paying for the recycling, but that might want to be looked into, because I'm not sure that they can do that.
You mean the owners can do that?
Legally.
Right, I don't know what our zoning regulations are. And exactly, and what our town ordinances are regarding that, but every apartment complex I've ever occupied or been involved in required to provide
Garbage disposal.
and recycle.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. We'll look
That
at that.
will create a large problem.
Yeah.
Thank you, Angie, for that information.
Thanks, Angie.
Okay,
Anything else?
I noticed that there was a huge increase for, the rec department. They're starting a program.
Well, the youth service program, I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. There was talk, and I believe a misunderstanding that was gonna be part of rec.
Okay,
It's not the Board of Selectmen's intention. It's going to be a separate department. It is also supposed to be 100% self-sufficient, the way we're attempting to design it. That way, what I mean by that, it will be user paid. We may have to look at a small amount of money for seed money. We're thinking that's one of the things that we could utilize ARPA for. We're only probably talking about somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000, but following that, anybody utilizing that program will be paying a weekly or a monthly fee, which will generate revenue on that. So there should be no cost. In concept, that's the way we're looking at it.
but we're putting it into the budget as like 50 grand or something like that. Is that true?
Is,
Yeah, it's roughly 50. Basically, what happens is if you're starting a program, you have to show the expenses. You'll eventually have the offset for the revenue, which that is not part of this piece yet.
so we're not showing any offset?
Not yet, no.
Okay, I think we have to talk.
Yes, yes, and then, yes, you will have to address, yes.
And if I could, if it's okay with you, can I clarify something? That's not Parks and Rec. It's not going to be managed by Parks and Rec. That's a child care program,
We're gonna be having interviews.
if we do it.
We're gonna have, if we do, and we have, it's gonna. Let me give you a little background. We had EastCon used to do this for years in town. Then there was an affiliate of the YMCA in Vernon that did it for a couple of years. They have both given those up, not only in our town, but everywhere else. And the reason with that was staffing. In today's work environment, they couldn't get people, particularly the outfit, the last one that was in Vernon, to either commute or to man the positions there, and they wouldn't do it if they couldn't have a lot of help. We are interviewing people coming up to make sure that we're satisfied that we've got a potential of some reliable resources that we're gonna be able to use for that. And then the Board of Selectmen, we're gonna meet in our entirety, look at the entire program and either start it or not start it.
Okay, because I.
If I could just add, I'm going to be handling the interviewing process, is that these interviews are really to find out if we have availability of anybody to be able to properly staff this, so that we don't have any downtime, someone's missing, it doesn't mean it has to be there. But it is not for a job, they filled out job applications, but it is not guaranteeing them a job at this point, because we have not approved the child care program. The Board of
Okay, but
Selectmen
it's
has
part
not.
of the budget.
This is really just testing the waters, see what we've got, and we have to be very careful about how we communicate this out, because we don't want those people thinking, wow, I just had my job interview. It's really, we need to explain to them, this is what we're trying to do. We want to get feedback from them in terms of their, availability, what they think they can do, so we can look and see how many people are actually interested in working in it.
Because I was reading somewhere we're looking for 3 people or something like that.
We have at least 3 applications, and the thing is, we need 3 people.
And do they get benefits or anything on top of that?
No. This is part-time work.
We're trying to accommodate a need, but to be quite frank, and we've done extensive research around the state about this. There are very few municipalities that run this sort of an operation. Most of them are run by the school or by a private concern. We're doing it because we tried to get the school to do it. They didn't have the capability of doing it at this time or want to take it on their shoulders right now. We're trying to accommodate because we recognize the need. I mean, I just learned we only have 2, I believe, certified childcare units in the town of Ashford right now. So we're trying to do it to accommodate it, but some of the people are very frustrated and they've been going slow. Well, that's by design right now, because there's an awful lot of responsibility that we would be taking on our shoulders, being the life of these children and care of them, and being able to do it in a reliable way that we've got a lot of confidence in. So we're trying to take this on. But I will admit that we're walking slow on it because we want to know what we're getting into and to be able to meet the need.
And this is not something a board of selectmen would normally be creating in a town. It's just looking at the fact that we understand that there is a need. And we're looking to see if there's something viable that could be put in place that can be managed well.
Now, the school has already agreed to allow us to use it when it goes into effect, if and when it does. We'll be able to use the cafeteria, we'll be able to use their gyms for the part-time. So, I mean, there is cooperation going on. It's just, at this time, the school didn't want to entertain it. And frankly, I begged Easton to reconsider starting it up again and got nowhere. And the YMCA in Vernon is in the same reach, so we're it right now. And we're doing the best we can.
So in reality, that line item in that budget right now is kind of a placeholder, if you will, to show that if it goes into place, we do have to fund it to begin with, because obviously the asset part of it doesn't come back, or the revenue part doesn't come back. Sorry, thinking ahead.
Right.
It will be a pay as you go once it starts out.
Would it be for just children in Ashford then?
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Actually for students. at
Oh.
Ashford. So it was actually, it's,
3 to 6th grade.
what, first grade to, I can't remember, first
Third
grade
grade.
to 8th,
No,
Third.
it's not, no, it's,
full-time students.
I believe it's 1st through 3rd grade.
So this is like, if they have to have care before the parents get home from work kind of thing? Okay, okay.
It'll strictly be 3 to 5 o'clock.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And that's where it gets touchy. And, you know, I've had a couple of parents call complaining to me. I said, look, come in. I'd be glad to sit down with you and go over the complexities of this. How do we make arrangements for that parent that has car trouble, or they can't leave work and they can't take care of that child? I mean, it's not an easy scenario to take care
And then
of.
if somebody gets sick,
There's, you know, I mean, you'll never be able to anticipate every problem you have, but you can anticipate that there's gonna be some.
So right now, one part of this is managing those parents' expectations.
yeah,
Okay,
I think,
this is not in place.
yeah, I
don't know if we're
understand.
gonna put it
Yeah.
I think Catherine said it best. Normally, this wouldn't be a board of selectmen or even a town function. This is not a private entity, or maybe a board of education if they elected to go that route. They haven't. So now, I think kudos to the town for looking at it, but how far it goes.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to open a daycare.
I was shocked when I heard there was only 2 certified.
I have another question for the fire department. It looks like 69, roughly 69 grand. What does that include? What are the increases?
Well, we happen to have the chief sitting here, so I made the first. My understanding is it's trying to bring the pay scale that we're paying our paid staff up to something competitive with our neighboring towns. I know our neighboring towns are having difficulties even getting hired staff. But I kid about it, but
Yeah, okay.
Paul's got more
I'll jump on
expertise
this.
on that than I do.
So that is the majority of the increases under the paid staff line, to add $1 an hour to the paid staff. Pay scale. to try to become a little more competitive with neighboring agencies. We still have no health benefits that are associated with our pay scale, so there's no benefits involved. We don't have enough employees to meet the state required mandate. And we're still at only covering 18 hours a day to staff members. So, but in order to maintain, to be competitive and attract and keep quality people we do have, we need, I see the need to add to it. If anybody has paid attention to what's been going on, it's really difficult. The daycare thing is a good example, but it's very difficult to get people to commit to these jobs, and then when another town or another agency adds $1 or $2, or we just had one that added $4, it's really hard to compete with that.
And just to add to that, I mean, there are towns around us that are in critical need of volunteers and paid staff. The town of Chapman, I don't know if you're familiar with the beautiful firehouse they have down there on 198. You know how many active members they have? 3 right now. I just heard of an incident. There was a structure fire a month or so ago in Eastford. And they're suffering the same sort of situation with manpower. They had a structure fire. They had to wait till Ashford got there before anybody could go into the home because none of their staff were certified for Scott packs. And I mean, it's situations like that that scares the hell out of me. And to me, all the more highlights how we have to try to help the fire department any way we can, and particularly trying to come up with volunteers for them. It's an issue, and it's not an issue just localized to Ashford. It's the entire area. Sorry, Paul.
Oh, no, it's okay. You know, go to Bill's point, you know, volunteers are difficult to find. We all volunteer for this board. We know how much time just that takes. And so, you know, and so the only other thing is that I want to just make sure people understand that, you know, the positions that the town is looking for, some of them are part-time and don't have any benefits associated with it, but any full-time job, we're currently paying our full firefighter EMT staff $19 an hour. So,
Paul, I couldn't hear. How much was that per hour? There's something with the audio.
19.
1.9. Thank you.
So this would give them $1, so it would be $20 an hour. You know, obviously, as moving forward, eventually the department and consequently the town is going to have to look into the benefit part of it as well. Joe Calinelli is retiring this year. There's guys in my department who can meet that job description and go work for the town, and they probably double what they do at the fire department with benefits. So I used to joke about when one of the guys leaves the town when I was a paid staff, and when one of the guys leaves the DPW, I'm gonna go for that job because it's better, get better pay.
Yeah. Do you know how many Paul, do you know how many man hours? So I know $1 per hour, but like how many man hours, say, per week or month or something? Any idea?
It's 18 now, it's 36 hours a day, Garth. I don't have the math in my head, and I didn't come prepared to actually do a presentation.
Yeah. Okay. So, it's just, I thought it was for multiple people, or is it just for?
It is, but we cover 18 hours a day with, so 18 times 2 is 36 times 365. So, if my calculator comes up on my computer, I'll tell you.
I mean,
I'm good, thanks.
but staffing for everyone right now is a problem. My understanding at the school is that a paraprofessional right now with their new contract is going to go up to $21 an hour, and they get prorated benefits. So, I mean, that's just one thing that's a little hard to compete with. But it's a fact right now that does influence whatever we're doing regarding staffing.
And just to go back to the rest of the other increase, because that line is it doesn't equate to the whole 69.3. There are increases in line items that we don't have control over: dispatch service, communication services, fuel, oil, fuel for the apparatus, contracted services and repair, maintenance on the trucks, those type of things, just overall insurance, those I have no control over at all. In reality, the only part of this budget I really do have control over is that the wages. We did add a couple of dollars to some lines, but again, that was because of the increase in cost for equipment, medical supplies. The town doesn't actually fund the medical part of it. EMS it's listed in here, but it's not funded by the town. The ambulance pays for itself and actually does pay for part of the staffing. If you read the narrative, it breaks it down. But other supplies for the truck that we need, just like seam tape and vests for safety and all that, everything has gone up. It's ridiculous. To say the least.
Anything else, Judy?
Yeah, just wondering because we had that referendum in August where we gave a lot of money for, we already went through supplies, emergency supplies, and
That was from ARPA funds.
yeah, that was 138,000.
We didn't get 138,000, I wish.
We got an upgrade to the radio system, Jaws of Life, mini split, and emergency equipment.
Yeah, that was
Replacement
all.
emergency
It
equipment.
was our money, so it's basically like capital
Right,
improvement
right,
as opposed to budget.
yeah. The mini splits was to upgrade the air handling system in the living quarters of the firehouse. That was in conjunction with Catherine. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that was in conjunction with when Catherine was still first selectman. We worked on that, and it was just approved in August. And then the Jaws of Life were added to the ambulance as a first response availability. And that was on the capital improvements list actually for the previous year. And the capital improvements committee, along with the board of selectmen, thought that was an appropriate use of ARPA, which I 100% agree with. What else was on that?
That's why I would agree that I would use the ARPA funds for the fire department.
Right,
more than anything
oh,
else.
the medical equipment, that was all, that overall, it is all, what we call durable medical equipment, so things that we are required or to have or do have on our apparatus or the ambulance that we use continually. For instance, the stretcher, we didn't replace the stretcher, but we bought a replacement mattress so that if it becomes contaminated, we don't go out of service. We just bring it back. We can take the old mattress off and put the new one on. We bought a second set of straps for the stretcher for the same reasons. So the list included things like our portable suction units, pulse oximeters, a blood pressure monitor. So those are things that if they were become contaminated, we would literally be out of service without them by state statute. So we bought backup supplies. Remember during the COVID times, every time we came back, we had to decontaminate the ambulance, and there were some times when it was out of service for hours because of it. We had an incident that actually wasn't COVID related, but it required several hours of decontamination where we could have probably been back in service quicker if we could have just taken that stuff off and replaced it. That was the idea behind that, and we're actually just about done. Supply chain issues are huge that we still have, so all that stuff has been bought in-house with the exception of 2 items as far as I know.
I know, just, I'm familiar with one of, when I was on the department and we were using Jaws of Life, you needed a minimum of 2 people to do that. With the new unit, they pick up because of the aluminum and the design, 1 person can operate it. Which falls in line with the shortage of manpower that we have. Anytime we can come up with some equipment to minimize how many people we're gonna need on a piece of apparatus or equipment, I think that's critical to do. Anything else for me?
I got one more question on the capital improvement list. Cattle Rock that's been going on for years.
Yeah,
Is there end in sight, following this, that it might
the
be?
Board of Selectmen is entertaining, we're coming up with a new round of brownfields.
Grants.
With grants, and those monies would be only spent if they were offset by a grant, that's why it's a wash. But our intention is to pursue that. We're in consulting with our attorney that's been working on that for years, plus our environmental consultants. And Chris will be giving a report to the board, if not Monday, then our next regular meeting, about if we're gonna apply for the next one. I'm gonna assume we are, because what I've heard is the next one is scheduled for August or September. If they do it at all, and if they do it, it's gonna be for much less money. So we'll be debating that out, figuring out where we wanna go, but we wanna continue pursuing that.
Also, this capital improvement list has not been finalized yet. We'll be finalizing that at our Tuesday meeting.
Okay, so I'm just anxious to hear what insight is on that.
We keep pushing. We do keep pushing on that, but we need the grant.
It was very competitive, the last round. I mean, I sincerely thought we had a good opportunity to be granted that. I understand we were near the top of the list, but we didn't make it. So,
I have another question. Just for knowledge, so last year, we ended up collecting pretty good funds for taxes. Those funds, where do they go?
into the general fund.
The general fund.
Yes.
You mean like Linda's, what, above and beyond anticipated revenue?
Yes,
Yeah, they go into the general fund,
okay.
and then they appear in your undesignated fund balances.
Hey, do you know off the cuff how much that was by any chance?
The additional.
Yeah,
My recollection with hers, I believe, was 229,000 or something in that area.
I'm not gonna hold you to it, I'm just
Please don't.
curious.
We can get you the number.
Yeah, I'm sure that Sherry
I can look at the audit.
pull that out tomorrow.
Linda probably has it written on her desk in big pink letters.
She used to write it on my forehead.
What's that?
She used to write it on my forehead.
Well, she
Yeah.
was,
You'd be so proud of it.
she was proud.
She works at Taylor.
Could I ask a question? Because I didn't quite understand. This is extra money?
It's money above and beyond. For example, with the tax collector, we anticipate and we plan on a 98% collection rate.
Okay, I get
This
that.
is above and beyond that, which she.
So-
Those amounts,
Looking toward 100%.
right, and those amounts go into the general fund
Oh,
at the end of,
Okay.
a fiscal year.
okay. All right, okay.
Well, I've got a few questions. Taking over the mowing, do we already own the equipment?
Yes,
Recycling,
I mean, one of the things on that, and that was one of my first questions, do we have the equipment to do without going out and spending $100,000 on the equipment? I was told we do. One of the reasons, and we do some of our own mowing, roadside mowing, and everything we do now. We've got some pretty sophisticated tractor equipment to do that. But it's how thin do we spread our staff up there? Like, we've got a steep grant for $500,000 on Southwark that we're gonna be starting next month. Could we afford to pull a guy or two guys off of that to do mowing? Those are the sort of things that we're weighing.
the recycling, single stream is a loser.
Sorry.
Single stream is a loser, yes. It's a complete failure. We don't actually recycle anything. So is there any push anywhere to go back to sorting recycling? So that we can actually reduce the costs going out and actually recycle as much stuff as we feasibly can?
Yeah, I couldn't cite you the bill number, but I believe there's a House bill looking into doing that. I mean, we have a problem, obviously, but when you look at these towns the size of even Wilmette, which isn't a large town, we're talking about posting money to like recycling. That what we're hearing isn't happening.
Yeah. Well, recycling single stream was fine when we sold it all to China. But now you take glass and cans and you smash them and compact them into all the cardboard. And now how do you recycle that? So single stream isn't useful for us in this country for actual recycling. So that's why 95% of plastics and whatnot end up getting burned or buried, because it's not recyclable the way that we do it.
We
So,
used to get paid for metals, like aluminum.
Right, right.
Is that single stream driven by the waste company?
Yes, yes, so let's say that.
Cause I mean, yeah, so that's.
So we should challenge them in
Yeah,
terms of.
if they don't, if they're not giving us a choice, can we force them to give us a choice, or do we, I mean, I know they're the only game in town, unfortunately, so.
That's the problem.
It's a conversation.
And that's what happens, though, is they're driving that because it's easier for them to just come and pick up, you know.
and the general public doesn't care because they just want to throw it in one bin and not have to think about sorting and all that stuff.
Oh, my wife.
There's like.
And it is single stream when it picks up, but then when they bring it to their facility, it is all sorted there.
Supposed to be.
That is what they.
That's what they claim.
Yeah.
You're not picking glass out of cardboard, you know?
It goes in and then they have the machines that sort it all out to go.
There might be an opportunity to observe how they
There you
do.
go. Maybe somebody can.
I think I'd love to see how.
The debt service, when do we start paying on the bond for the roof? For the
It's
school?
anticipated 2025.
All right, and do we have an idea of what the actual impact is for a payment
Well,
after the state reimbursements? and all that
there's
stuff?
many. Also, a bit of good news, I just learned yesterday that the reimbursement we've been told was at 63. It's now 65, so there's gonna be a bit of a savings there. We're gonna know that better once, and that's one of the reasons we've hired a financial consultant who actually markets our bonds. We won't really know the specific impact. I mean, we have a choice with going with a 10, 15, 25, 30-year bond. They're gonna make recommendations to us on what that serves the town and looking at that. So we cannot give you any anticipated figures on that yet.
Another part of that is that it's based upon the rates at the point in time
I
we
know,
get the
I know.
bond. So,
But we're retiring a debt that we're about to, that in this current budget, it'll be retired, but in the next budget, it's gonna come back. So
Yes.
we've eaten that dip by flat funding. What looks like flat funding now is actually quite an increase because we're eating that dip. Which means that next year, we're gonna be going up by a couple $100,000 just for that one line
I
item.
think what people don't realize, or those that aren't quite as close as we are, this is just the first stage, the roof. Now we're up at the school, we're talking about windows. We're
Right,
talking
because
about
there's a requirement for HVAC coming, right?
HVAC, we're hoping that federal funds cover that, but that's not for sure yet.
And there's gonna be one asbestos.
Part of the problem with that is abatement.
Yeah,
If you take out those windows and disturb asbestos that are
Right.
existing, even if it's just in the caulking or whatever.
yeah,
And another problem that you have, and people don't realize, is that if you do renovations along the lines of what we're talking about, you have to bring the whole building up to ADA standards.
Right.
Which is a whole other cost.
Yeah.
Another thing they don't realize, and Wellington is just learning it the hard way, is where what I just said, our reimbursement anticipated 65%. On new construction, it's 35. So some people say, well, why are you making all these repairs? Let's just build a new school. One, you couldn't build a school that size because we don't have the population to justify it. Two, Wellington has about the same population in their grammar schools as we do right now. Their new school is gonna run $63 million. They're gonna be reimbursed 35% of that. So, I mean, some people think they have real easy solutions, but they don't know all the true background on that stuff.
and when all is said and done, we're getting the bond for 5 million, basically. But with the reimbursement and everything, the actual cost to us is not gonna be.
It's less than $1 million.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
so.
that's still a couple $100,000 a year.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm looking at this and, you know,
Yeah.
this is a $500,000 increase this year. That's 1.5 mils. Next year, the town's gonna go up by at least $200,000 to cover that debt service. So Board of Ed, 4% teacher contracts, which was a great negotiation in the state, but you add those numbers together, they're gonna be hitting us for another 300,000+. Region 19, we're going up again next year by about the same number of students we had this year. That's gonna be another 200,000. Now we're $750,000 next year. That's over 2 more mills next year. So that's a lot of money for taxes when we have, what, 93% residential taxes?
Correct.
There's, something has to give. We're gonna become unaffordable quickly.
Wellington, we're 93, Wellington is 81.
Yeah.
Eastford is about 91, which is similar to us. Chaplin's about 93.
What do you mean by those numbers? What are those numbers?
Well, by those numbers, your tax dollar for your home. Every dollar that we spend, town government wise, 93% is directly accessible to your local property tax.
Because we don't have.
Oh, I
businesses.
see, okay, okay.
Businesses bring in and you spread it over a commercial base. We don't have that luxury here,
Yeah, we don't
Oh, we have
anything
some businesses.
Yeah, but
7%.
which is among the lowest in the state.
And then the other problem too, is you mentioned Eastford, whose population is much different than ours.
Yeah.
So there's, you know, they have no zoning. And you know, and if you look at Union too, they probably have the same thing. They have a couple of retail businesses, but again, their population is so small that their school budget is so, like, that's one of the big differences we have in Ashford is our education budget is what, 70-something% of our budget.
The last I looked, it was close to 75.
I was gonna say, I think it's 75.
So that's, because if you took that out, cut that in half, you know, I mean, if you look at what the general fund does, the general budget does versus the school budget every year.
So the point taken, John, I have gone through this.
Next year, it's going up a lot.
We really have to look at the future. I mean, we really haven't had these discussions in past years of, you know, what the future is gonna look like, or, you know, where we're going with, you know, funding. But, yeah, so if we're using all this money this year from the debt service and then adding it into the mix for next
Well,
year.
you're not using it, we don't have the tax for it because we don't need it.
But we're not
still
spending it
part-
on one-time items though. It could be, if it was a one-time item, then it would be a placeholder. And then next year it would revert back to
Right,
that, so like that, the tax is the same level. But because these are not one-time costs,
Right.
it's staying flat and using that surplus, and then next year it'll go away, debt service.
If you look at the increase, and Cindy can speak to this much better than I can, I think they're at a 3.51 or 3.61, some adjustments that were just recently done. Probably contractual commitments are 90% of it,
Right.
and they will be for a number of
Yes.
years, there's no getting out of it. And which is the same for us, I mean, we also have some contractual commitments. But those are driving factors that you folks have to take into consideration and look at in the long range.
That's why I keep asking, you know, if you're hiring somebody, is there benefits? Because as you hire, you're just growing this employment. And you're adding benefits and other things that, we're not gonna be able to sustain.
Well, what you
Because we
have
don't
to
have
do
any
is
income.
be able to balance what you need, what you can afford with what you can do. We lost an assessor here who went to 2 other towns combined. We were paying her about 65,000, which we were paying our president. It's a God blessing, she's with us now, but that's where the assessor we lost went to Bolton and Wellington. They're paying her 91,000. And that's competitive with what's going on around the state. That's not unique. I'm sure Sherry.
And
Yeah.
she's
I'm not
managing
talking
other people.
about you.
It's not the same, it's not quite the same, it's managing other people.
But the point is, and it goes back to what I talked about too, and what, you know, we brought it up how many times. It's difficult to be competitive when we're trying, I understand we're trying to be conservative, fiscally conservative. But at the same time, if you want employees and quality employees, there's a cost. Yeah, I don't have the answer other than get some more commercial
I mean,
tax.
it's a balancing act and you have to be realistic. You know, Can you afford to go without an assessor? Can you afford to go without a tax collector? I mean, where would we be?
Yeah, we found that out last year.
Right. You know,
Can't go without her.
And that's what makes us the bad guys, right? When we tell people they can't have something because we literally can't afford it anymore.
John, anything more on your list?
No, that's it.
Now that you got us all down in the tokens.
These are scary numbers.
What's that?
They're scary numbers. When I looked at my house, when we were just looking at buying it, I had the previous year's taxes available and they were in the 3,000s. And now 5 years later, I'm in the 6,000s and my house is a dump and I haven't renovated it yet and I'm
Okay.
afraid to renovate it.
I'll trade.
Well, our time in the barrel for reevaluation couldn't have been a worse timing for us.
Right, so that's another concern because we're gonna be spending the money no matter what. When we reevaluate, if the values drop a lot, then the mill rate's gonna go through the roof. And now, how do you attract businesses when your mill rate is that
I
high?
don't know if you've heard the news, but we've been advised by OPM already. You know, normally we're in a 5-year cycle. For some reason, we're among a handful of towns that are in a 4-year cycle. So we'll be doing reval this time 4 years out. Wow, last one, not 5. You'd have to call Hartford to get the rationale.
Yeah.
I've got no
Well,
legitimate.
just Hartford and rationale, the same kind of, it doesn't even matter.
Oxymoron.
It kind of, you know, it's like we had the discussion last week about the unfunded mandates, and I spent a half of my day today on the phone regarding unfunded mandates for my department. You know, these are things that are out of our control. They don't give you an option. There's no option. So.
I didn't read the whole thing, but I saw an email today because somebody had asked Cindy
Yeah.
about mandates. I think she said they're working under either 125
Yeah, she set it out.
unfunded mandate.
Yeah. And a lot of them cross over, some of the ones that affect her, affect the town, affect me, affect
Yes.
every business in town.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's amazing.
If you wanted to know the number, what she collected for taxes that overall, it over and above was 269,703. I'm rounding it up. So that is between,
That's above the 98%.
that's all 4 categories. So that is on, that's total. Current year levy, she collected 23,455. Prior year, she collected 99,261.93 over. Interest and liens, she collected 63,628.74 above. And then, additional on the motor vehicle supple, she collected, 83,357.40, so. It's over and above what was budgeted. I don't know if you need to know what the budgeted numbers were. Just
But, okay, so the 269,703 was
is
all
all,
and above?
Yes.
This is the total of all
all of those 4 lines, yes,
that were over and above.
yes, so that essentially goes into your general fund at the end of the year. It's rolled up with all your revenues taken in, all your minus your expenses.
That's
and
why,
you get
that's
your-
why the unexpended, whatever we call it, unassigned fund balances.
It went so high.
I will
It
say,
went up.
she just advised me, I believe on Tuesday, that she's on real estate. She's met her 98% goal already.
It's her. She does a great job.
No, thank you.
One other bit of information I wanted to share with you, and I think I sent you, so you may have already seen. Our grand list this year increased by 0.80, which in tax dollars, the assessor's given me equates to an additional $92,472. That's based on last year's number. You get that, John?
I did. When did you send that out, Bill?
There was an email when I got it from her, I believe I sent it.
It was a while ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I probably saw it.
Yeah.
So when we collected, well, like now. Those are 92,000 real dollars for this current budget year.
Yes.
So then we've collected almost $370,000 above what we planned on collecting.
You mean on the new grant list?
On the grand list, plus the tax collections over 98%.
Well, that's 269 was as of June 30th.
June 30th.
Okay,
Yeah, so that other, yeah.
And
So
the
that wouldn't be in this.
That
year,
last
it would be in
year.
That's
the
last
grant
year.
list is like October first.
Right,
right. Yeah.
Yeah, that 269 was June 30th, that's why that
And then
undesignated
fund
balance
balance went.
went from 11%, because that's what we had left it, to
Mhm.
14%, because around, at first I was like, how do we do that?
Thank you.
We can go buy one.
Yeah, because I thought we did 11.5 last year, or 11, something like that.
But now we're at 14.3 or something.
You are for, yeah, at 6:30 it was
And
14.
your 11.5 was probably because you transferred money.
Correct, that's what
We're
we're
in
at.
excess of that. So that brought you back to,
Right, that's
rational
exactly right.
and funds our CNR, which is really important.
That's how we do it.
when it comes to the bond people. Will we know before we have to transfer that money, whether or not, what the bond rating difference would be between 14 point whatever percent and 12%?
Yes, and that's something our financial advisor should be advising us
Right, because I
about.
don't want to move that money until we know what the implication of the bond rating will be.
Right.
Yeah,
But with CNR, you can always move it back into the other, as long as you have it.
As long as you have it covered. Yeah,
So that's another thing too, we have to look at the expense for the roofing project, the upfront expenses.
yeah, that's one of the things that we're working on, and I think I mentioned it last week to you folks. And Jim Rupert's working on that with prior construction, who did some of the preliminary plans up at the school, trying to determine what we need for upfront money. I've heard anywhere from 100,000. Chris talked to somebody the other day, said $1 million. That's gonna be depending whether our board makes a recommendation to you folks that we go out for bond anticipation notes, temporary notes. I think I mentioned to you, there's 3 methods. We could fund it and basically loan ourselves the money through our undesignated fund. Same way they're recommending that we do the steep grant. We could go out and do it in a short-term loan with one of our banks, which is gonna cost you interest. Or we could do this bond anticipation note, which is also gonna cost you money. So that's something that our boards are gonna have to deliberate on and we'll consult more with our finance director and bond counsel and everything, and then the board will meet on it and make a recommendation.
I have 2 things. We're talking about CNR. One of the reasons behind moving that money into CNR is to protect it. The town is ever sued, they can't come after what you essentially allocated to something. So it's allocated to CNR. I learned that a long time ago when Rocky Hill did it. We have to do this. The other thing is with the school roof. I don't know, they may have mentioned, I'm not sure where the cost is going to be addressed, but we really need a project manager. This is not something this is something that the board of selectmen have discussed. And when we're talking about, Jim Rupert is a very capable person, but he also works in 3 towns as the building official. Plus, I believe he's still town manager.
He's town manager in Bolton.
And so, it's an awful lot to put on one person. And the other thing too, is you need to make sure the communications are working well. So first of all, you have to have a good plan. So you can execute on the plan and then they follow up and take care of it. You need the project manager for that. And then when it comes to clerk of the works or something like that, Mike Myers he also works very hard doing what he's doing. And yes, he's there. But you may need someone to do that kind of work to make sure that we don't get ourselves into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I know you meant. That's not built into that bond package, is that?
No, it can be. It's considered a soft cost. I'm not sure it's reimbursable by the state, and that 65%, but
And-
we made, I thought,
I remember at the bond meeting, there was some discussion about it.
there was, and our board subsequent to that decided to make although they recommended to us, and then we put it in place. We let it be known that we had passed a recommendation that that be in the scope of work when we advertise for that. It's just good money.
Oh, I don't disagree. I was surprised that it wasn't already.
I was very surprised when it came up at that meeting that it wasn't gonna be in there.
So the follow-up selectmen meeting we're talking about.
Yeah, as you know, I've been minus some of the select meetings lately, so, but. Oh,
I mean, I perceive it'll probably be in the area somewhere between 30 and 50,000 on a $5 million project.
yes.
That's not a lot of money. I mean, with the states, anything that we had that was $1 million or more, we would assign a project manager.
Judy, where are we in the agenda? Because I have a question for Sherry, but it doesn't really apply to the.
Well, we kind of mixed the general government with the capital improvement. So I guess we could move to the capital improvement and see if there's any additional questions about that, and then we'll move on to old business. Yeah, any
We'll have a
questions?
finalized one for you next week.
Yeah, the board has not made a recommendation, although our committee went over everything. The other night. We will have a recommendation for you. There are several things here that are washes, as we're saying. Like $1 million we're showing, we just put that in for upfront money for the roof project. There's 500,000 there that's offsetting for table rock. County road, I believe is in for 205,000. That'll be, well, town road projects are offset by town aid road. So those things are washes. I come up with about based on what we've discussed, and again, the board hasn't deliberated on this, but we're looking at probably in the area of 361,000 needed for TNR. And I'm sure our recommendation is going to be not to deplete that to zero or below. That's why we're going to probably make a recommendation for reconsideration of your undesignated fund balance adjustment percentage wise. I mean, there's a few things on there that to me are no brainers, like the fire alarm system at the school. I don't know, to me that's a no brainer. That's gonna happen. We are talking with the school board perhaps within the contributing part of their 1% fund that they're asking me for that, like we did on the tank replacement last year.
Do we have any idea when we would be ready for the second school bond? Because they want solar panels in that too, right?
There'll be no, as I'm hearing right now, and I haven't seen it in contract, it'll be a wash. They're saying no money investment from the town side.
On the solar panels.
Yep.
But as far as the HVAC and the windows and all that stuff, that'll be another bond package.
Correct.
But
That's
how far away is that?
probably at least 25 or 26. Although there are people up there who want us to do the windows before we put a roof on. That's not gonna happen.
I thought fire said that wasn't a good idea.
It's not a good idea.
Oh, it's not, but I'm just saying, I thought that people
That
that
doesn't
fire.
necessarily make a difference
Oh, I'm just.
to some people.
Right.
Wait a minute.
I don't know.
I'm sure by your next meeting, we can get it in more depth. Once the board of selectmen has an opportunity to.
Any more on capital or general?
Not for those guys.
Well, I had a question too about how, well, I'll say that for the next. And if you'll get into it tonight. Okay, agenda for the next meeting,
Well, wait, so that's why I was asking, so are we, for the general budget discussion, I did have a question, that's why I didn't.
Oh,
want-
okay. Go ahead. We haven't cut you off yet.
So my question is, to Sherry, 'cause she's got the computer and the figure. Right now, with the numbers we have, what is the mill increase that we would be looking at?
I can't tell you because I don't have all the revenues.
Okay.
The revenues is another key piece to it, and no, because
No, that's a fair answer, I didn't know you
Yes.
didn't have.
No.
all that.
basically, as far as I know, one set of numbers have come out for the governor's budget.
Okay,
Those change constantly, and I
Okay, yeah.
expect to see that in the next few weeks,
Okay.
because CCM will also come out
right,
with
with their.
a recommendation. I have not seen the breakout from CCM yet.
Okay.
So,
So the revenue package hasn't been put together yet.
no, I mean,
Because then my next question was to basically to John's point, like next year, if we have to go up 2 or 3 mil, where's the breakout gonna be? So, because right now, appears to be a little over a mil increase, right? Which is, right, and then next year it would be probably more, given what we know.
I am hoping that E.O. Smith, because they historically have.
Yeah, I know, it moves around. You'll spend some difficult. They do Region 19 does a very good job of working their budget down. They do tend to start up and then push back down, but
They've always done a pretty good job. This new administrator they've got up there is even.
you know, we kind of got really lucky last year in the sense that our Region 19 budget kind of saved us. And this year it's our general government budget that's kind of saving us, but at some point we might not have anything to save us.
I'm trying to think of a time that we went up. I'll just throw a number out, more than 2 months. Ever,
We've had a couple.
not in my,
I can't.
not in my
I can't know.
26 years, 27 years.
Technically, last year we did.
Technically, yeah. Technically, you're right.
Technically, last year we shouldn't have, but we did.
The worst time I can remember was, I don't know if any of you remember Paula Faulkner, but her first year as first selectman. And it was the years Steve Rubitsky had not won, and he signed us into the E.O. Smith contract. And I believe we had a 3.5 or 4% mill increase.
With that, because of that.
Because of E.O. Smith.
Yeah, that would make sense. What was that, 38 years ago?
It was a lot of years.
Got that?
Yeah, about that. Okay, now that we've all discussed how old we are, let's move on.
That was BC, it was before Catherine, so.
Not before Pete.
You good, chief?
I'm good, thank you. I was just trying to get an idea of what's going, where we're going.
I mean, we're going into a frightening space. That's where we're going.
No.
And I will say too, with revenues, I just double check with some of the departments, because there's been some increases, like, building permits and things, and I just wanted
Right,
to be able
well-
to talk to them
Right, and
to
that's,
see where they're comfortable at, and that hasn't been something
those are
that.
really hard too, because like we had a big spike in those things during COVID, right? The building permits.
Yeah, right. 21, 22, your actual, I'm looking at that, it was $107,000
Right.
and budgeted, it's only 61.
Right.
So,
Right.
am I,
No,
for me, just looking at, it, I bumped that number up. But I want to make sure history,
No.
because I have not been here long enough for the history
But
to
then
know.
again,
I think the
also-
history has always stuck around 60.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's the part,
You know,
that's,
And I have to say too, there's something that I addressed with Linda with tax collection, because over the past 2 years, she's definitely increased that collection on back year's interest and supple. So that's, yeah, so in my mind, I'm like, up that, because it's been a
Right.
flat amount. So, those are something that,
You will never get anywhere with their.
No, you won't, I was just.
I know, but
Sure.
and
we
that's-
all wish you luck.
What's interesting is that people are paying those taxes.
They are, it's over and above. I've seen it in my other town. Same thing. It's crazy. I'm like, you think people, you know, during COVID, you know, wouldn't pay, but we've seen more in the uptick of that.
That's good.
You know, but that's something you as a board can adjust those numbers. I mean, this is what she presents to you as a board. You certainly can make that decision of changing, not, and I'm gonna make myself the
You're
bad
making yourself
person.
the bad.
I'm gonna be the bad person.
And you don't want it to be Linda.
Don't worry about it, Sherry. Usually I am. But those are the things that I see, you know, that can be addressed. You know, and that's something that you as a board have to decide if you want to increase those numbers. So, you know, and I mean, you know, the first numbers that came out, even for your education cost sharing, I mean, they're cutting those numbers, you know. So, and then during the year, they can do an audit on that, and sometimes based on your number of children, and that can go up, that'd be great, but it can also be cut even more. So, you know, those are the biggest things that I see. And
This year's governors is cutting each year for us by about 129.
Well, Sherry, would they cut it? That I saw that too, 120 something, because they have less children.
I think it's the formula.
I just-
It's the
Formula.
It's always. formula.
yeah.
So she just said it depends on the children.
Well, that's auditing, but the number that when it comes out from, I think it's just a
Right,
formula.
they're only in two balls out there.
Three, yes. They
And
get,
each
they
time
get,
they're assessing how many are doing.
yeah, you get, one amount in October, one amount in January, and then you get quarter, and then a half. So, okay.
You want me to get it for you?
No, I can do it. I think.
126,480 is what they're proposing to cut.
That's governors.
That's governors. That's governors, because I have not seen anything come out from them yet.
I
Other
hear
than-
that's being hotly contested.
Yes, yes. So, you know, those numbers, I've seen that report come 2-3 times a week,
Right.
and, you know, it changed. So, you know, then you decide, okay, we're gonna go with, you know, CCM with it or with governors. Most of the time, go with CCM numbers. It's been pretty much on the ball. I'm trying to think anything else. Yeah, sometimes what's also is reducing is some of your tax relief for your disability and veterans. That is, you know, the state cuts those amounts every year. And it's based, you know, people that have been on those programs passing away, so you have less people that are getting that, so you have less money that's coming to you also.
We'll see where we land.
Absolutely. Right now, what I see, you know, Town A Road, that's coming still the same amount. Mashantucket is still the same amount. Whether they decide this right now, what's in there, you have municipal revenue sharing, and then you have distressed municipality. Is the monies that they have been giving out, and they rename it because they have an allotment of money, and it's like, so it shows up in one year, and then you see, you don't get it for 4, you know, next 2 years, and then it's on the next page. It's named something else. So those are just moving targets, pot of money, and they disperse it to the town. I will say this is something that I'm looking at, interest on investment. I know there's been a change with interest rate. I mean, they were in the
For years.
for years. Now, it's, I forget what Laura said, it's 3-point-something% that they're giving. So we're getting substantial money, absolutely. I mean, we budgeted $13,000, you know, for this, because the rate we've collected right now, $66,000. So,
Fantastic.
you know, so that is something that, you know, more money than we can kind of keep there at times helps. So that's something also instead of 13, I've got 50, I'm probably gonna up it, hopefully those rates stay with the forecast, that's, so. But that is, another number that can be adjusted, so. That's what we're looking at for revenues. Yeah. Have anything else exciting there with that? Okay, thank you. That's.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Anybody have questions? Whenever I'm here on Fridays. Door is always open. I have open door policy. Anybody comes in, ask questions, how you learn. So. That's the way I've always worked. That's the way I've always worked, sometimes I don't get my work done, but that's, but it helps because then eventually it's less questions, when people have an understanding of how things work.
And if you're not there on Friday, we can submit questions to you via email.
Absolutely, good, absolutely. I have, the laptop has been at my hip lately. I usually have it open, and so it's, anytime, I tell everybody, got my
You're gonna
number, call
regret
me,
that.
do what,
Cause I've been trying to get them used to going through the chair to the people so that they're not.
Oh, I hear you, I hear you. That's true.
Night, folks.
I just.
Thank you for what you do.
Figure that now we're coming down the wire. They're probably-
Sure, you got the longest ride home.
Yes. We're good.
Yeah,
my-
good.
guys.
Yeah.
You guys good on there? Angie Garth,
What's that?
I am.
Sherry, because we're gonna let her go. She's got a hard drive.
Of course.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I'm in Brooklyn.
All right, woman, you can run.
Oh, more than me. I don't have to deal with my husband, my child. My night out.
We're not a meeting. It's really- That's really bad. You need a life one.
Certainly, this is recorded, you could be watching.
Yeah. You know what? It is what it is.
Okay,
He's
so
going to see you on YouTube and then question you.
Go to YouTube videos.
Come up with a cover story. It's all a joke.
Bill's phones. Oh, Bill left his phone.
Oh, I'll take it up. We have to go. Oh, he's got both of
Oh,
them.
he's got both of them.
When I had the bat signal on it, it was red in the bat signal, it said Ashford in the middle of it. I always wanted to get with the bat, the bat on and be in some kind of meeting.
other questions? No, I'm not gonna go to that question.
Okay,
It's just gonna get
that's fine.
people riled up. I'm not in the mood at the moment. I might
That's fine.
change my mind.
That's
All right, so let's see, old business, we do budget discussion. Do we want to discuss anything else on this or any other information we have for the school? Right now, I mean, for me, I'm just looking at it as putting the pieces together. I'm not quite sure where I'm at yet. I definitely agree with exactly what John said about the debt, the Ashford School, Region 19 in general next year. I'm really concerned about that. So I'd like you guys, I challenge you to think ahead and be creative when we go through this process. Agenda items next week, it's a single talking about the budget. We invited,
You guys are voting on the capital
Tuesday morning,
Tuesday, so we should have the capital budget, capital improvements budget.
as far as I'm concerned, we have my day in.
Okay, well, no, for our next meeting.
but you want to put it on there.
Oh, your next meeting's next Thursday?
Yeah,
You should have it before that, so you can look at it.
okay, so we'll put the, it all goes together, right?
Yeah.
Whatever we get,
It's
we'll
all-
talk about. We did invite I forgot her name, Sharon,
Yeah, sure.
Region 19, to come speak to us. But I don't think I want her to come the same night as Ashford School. We had originally planned on the 23rd. Only because I think that,
So is the school coming back next week?
so originally I believe we said that last week. We've given them another week. Because I mean, we really, at this point, we really can't say, or it's not defined yet to really figure out who's doing what yet. So I don't know how beneficial that will be.
Well, we had asked her, or somebody had asked her about the mandates, unfunded mandates, but I don't remember that they were coming back. That doesn't mean that they didn't ask them.
I'll get in touch with Cindy and see if I have, because I don't see it in the minutes from last week, so. I'll get in touch with her and ask her, and then if we're still up in the air whether she wants to or not, we can push it.
And it would be, well, it doesn't make any difference to me if they come next week and we do 1918, come the following week or vice versa. To be honest, the
I
only.
just kind of want to split them up because I think that we owe that to Sharon to do her own thing, you know, and not, be focused on one thing at a
The
time.
other thing is too, is that when we look at the budget calendar, I don't remember when. I don't know when the Region 19 public hearing isn't until the 28th. So.
You're gonna have to finalize before that and publish.
The other thing is, if you guys are interested in asking certain departments to come in and speak about their budgets, I mean, you just got them, so maybe you want to review and let me know if there's somebody you want to invite in. And we can add them or see if they're available to add them.
We don't really have a say with Region 19, so my preference would be to have Region 19 come next week and have Ashford School come the week after that, so that next week we'll get to revenues and we'll actually know where we're sitting, so we can have better discussions with.
Okay, have Region 19 next week,
Yeah,
and that was the week we planned, right, John?
On this calendar, yes, but the date that we gave Sharon was tentative March 13th. So just have to.
On that calendar, I think that's their stuff. I think that's when they meet.
March 13th, we don't meet, that's a Monday. Did you give it the 23rd?
We gave it the 23rd, I thought.
Yeah, 23rd.
So that's 2 weeks. According to the calendar I'm looking at, that's when we're supposed to adopt we have to adopt our budget so that we can give it to the board of departments of the public hearing. It's the 23rd. You have to check with Christine about what the timeline is. If you can push that a week. Because there is a timeline for that. I bet you can't, no, you can't because of.
No, the calendar is made because of all the time limits we have.
And so.
I just thought it would be nice to have her come in and meet us.
It would be actually, that's why I think I actually like John's idea, if she can come next week.
I think there was an issue though. I'll ask her. But I
Because
thought,
then on the 23rd, we could have the school, Ashford School come back. And if we have anything that we want to talk about with them before we actually, because that's the day we actually have to make a recommendation and decide what we're gonna do. So I mean, the truth is yeah, we have 2 weeks, so we have to come up with an actual recommendation. Or adopt the budget and then send it to the board. So.
Okay, so we'll have our work cut out for us next week, because we really can't. We don't know where we stand right now.
Well, yeah, you do. Right now you have a long.
We have a good idea, but I wanna make sure we have a solid plan.
With what we have. If Region 19, well. I don't think the school or the general budget is gonna change a lot, up anyway, Region 19 could go either direction, we don't know. She would be able to explain it better, and then. If we have anybody, there's nobody actually this year that, maybe I'm just frustrated with them, but there's nobody that I really want to talk to. I haven't gone through everything in detail, I'll have this week.
I was
to
gonna
do that,
say,
so.
read your packet, because they put inside the packet their increases or decreases, they put like a little summary for
Right.
each item. So if you have questions after that, then we'll call somebody in, but I went through it. I don't feel the need to ask questions basically to anybody except I asked the fire department, but
That's just because I was sitting.
But the other ones, I mean, you pretty much explained the questions that I was gonna ask, the increases for the DPW, the increase, it was under the rec paperwork.
Yeah.
That's why I asked about it.
They just, if you don't know, it's a legitimate question, I've been attending their meetings, so I knew what they were doing, but. I would say, like I said, I agree, John, if Region 19 can come next week, that might make it a little bit easier for her. If she can't, then we swap it around. And have the board ready to come, and we'll have to come up with more questions. They're really the only ones that I think. I have maybe some more questions for, I don't know how to put that.
The board about.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I'll reach out to Sharon and see if I can find if she can come next week, and Cindy, and ask if Cindy wouldn't mind the following week. And we'll go from there. Any remarks for the good of the board?
I nominate Garth for clerk.
I haven't even done anything. Man.
Do you have one? All right, so remarks for the good of the board. I already pretty much spoke my mind about, thinking about the budget this year and think a little forward to see where we're going or where we're gonna be. A little bit cautious. And that's it. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Angie, you
Move to
still-
adjourn.
She heard that.
I have a second.
Second.
Okay, John, second. All those
Aye.
in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes.
See
Night.
you next.